What is your personality type and why does it matter? Let's talk about that today. Hi everybody, my name is BJ and I am one of the educators here at My Choice Education, and today we're going to talk about personality tests and personality types. Why do we hear so much about them? I don't know about you, but in my circle, we talk about personality types and personality tests like all the time. There's Myers-Briggs, which is like ENFP or INFJ and things like that. There's Enneagram. Are you a type 9 wing 3? Are you just different lingo with the Enneagrams. There's love language tests that'll tell you how you receive and give love. And one that we talk about a lot is something called the Smalley personality test, which we'll talk a little bit more about in depth here in a second. We see these personality tests all around us. Why? Why is it so important? We're going to answer that, or we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But first, I kind of want to dive into this Smalley personality test a little bit. If you've ever had us in the classroom, we give this test, and actually all of the tests that I mentioned, including the Smalley Institute, is in the My Choice Plus app. If you want to check it out and take those tests for yourself, we've got links to those in the app for your reference, so you can learn more about yourself and your personality type. In the Smalley personality test, there are 4 primary personality types. There's a lion, an otter, a golden retriever, and a beaver. Everybody falls into one of those 4 categories for the most part. There's usually 1 or 2 of those personality types that kind of rise to the top, that are the primary personality type in which we function out of. And based on what type of personality you have, kind of changes the way that you react in certain situations and how you interact in certain situations, how you emote and different things like that. So these 4 personality types, I'm just going to give you a brief description of what they are. So the lion personality. The lions are the leaders. They're the outgoing, the ones that are going to take charge, that are really, they have a plan and they're going to move forward and they're going to lead the charge. They're also kind of a little insensitive to others' needs and others' wants and feelings. They kind of tend to be the trailblazer who says, hey, this is what we're going to do. You don't like it? There's the door. An otter, the fun-loving social butterfly personality that has a ton of friends, that loves to be the life of the party, that just has a great time, loves to talk. They're also the ones who tend to not think before they talk or they act. They'll get way out ahead of themselves and get themselves into a lot of trouble because of that. And they're also kind of a little bit on the, not lazy side, but the, let's just put it this way. They're the ones most likely to not do their homework because they just got so caught up hanging out with their friends and family. And it just didn't get done. Not because they were trying to not do it, but just because they were preoccupied with their friends and their family. Golden retrievers. This is more of the introverted side of things. So lions and otters are extroverted. They love people. They have more relationships. Introverts tend to be more to themselves. The golden retriever, they're kind of like the best friends in the relationships. They're the ones that are great to cry with. They're the listeners. They're the calm and content. They're not too worried about the future. They're not too concerned about the past. They tend to not like change. They tend to be the kind of people that just like the status quo. And when things start to change, they get really anxious. Because they just want things to stay kind of calm. Think about a golden retriever. The animals have a correlation here, right? And then we have the beaver. The beaver is kind of like the organizer and the perfectionist personality type. They're the ones that have organizers and planners and calendars on the wall. They're the ones that like to know exactly when things are happening. They have every detail in mind. They're very, very, very detail oriented. Now, that perfectionism, as much as it's a strength, it also can be a weakness, right? It can be something that causes them to stress because every tiny little detail isn't quite right, and they tend to be loners because of it. They tend to take things on for themselves because I can trust myself to get these little details right. And they tend to be a little standoffish, and they're hypercritical of themselves and others because everything's got to be perfect. Now, what we can learn from these 4 personality types, that you fall into one of these areas, every personality has strengths and has weaknesses. The kind of bottom line here is no matter who you are, you have things that you're really good at, that you thrive in, and you have other areas where you're not so strong. And that's the nature of life. We just have natural areas where we're stronger and natural areas where we're weaker. As it is with these personalities, you've got the outgoing types that are more aloof and not considerate of the details or other people's feelings. And then you've got those who are stuck in their ways and they don't like change, or they're such a perfectionist that things don't get done because they're so worried about the details. Strengths and weaknesses. We cannot allow ourselves to be consumed with the strengths and the weaknesses, because let me tell you something. No matter what personality type you are, no matter what personality test you take, you are not defined by these tests. You're not defined by the strengths that they spit at you or the weaknesses that they highlight in you. We're not defined by those things. Those are things that are pointed out to us that we can leverage, that we can use in relationships, and we can, take the strength and also work on my weaknesses and just kind of go back and forth. But they don't define who we are. Something else that you'll find whenever you take these tests, or maybe you see it a little bit as I was describing them to you, you may not fit perfectly in just one area. You might say, oh yeah, I definitely have lion tendencies, and I can see the leader and I can see that strong-willed thing, but I also see a little bit of the beaver where I'm a hyper-perfectionist and every detail's got to be absolutely perfect. The reality is you're not going to be simply just one of those personalities. In fact, you might find out that you have 2 or 3 that have high rankings, and that's okay. The more you learn about yourself and your tendencies the more you learn, the better. You can think about it like colors, right? There are 3 primary colors: red, blue, yellow. Every color that we see is some combination of those 3 colors. Every combination is different. And so, yeah, you have yellows, but you have different hues of yellows, and you have different types of reds and oranges and greens because they're different combinations. We're going to be like that. We're going to have a unique kind of personality based on a combination of certain aspects. And that's something that, to be kind of corny, gives color to life, right? If we were all the same, if we were all one personality type, we were all red, we were all green, we were all whatever, life would be pretty dull. We wouldn't have diversity. We wouldn't have differences to make people shine and celebrate each other's who they are. Those colors, those variances, while they point out differences, they actually make life interesting. And we need those things, and it balances life. If everybody was a lion, nothing would get done because everyone would just be fighting for control. If everyone was an otter, nothing would get done because everybody would just be partying and having fun and just goofing around. If everybody was a beaver, everybody would be so worried about the perfect details that nothing would get done. If everybody was a golden retriever, we wouldn't move forward because things are okay the way they are, right? We need the different personality types because they help push us forward, they help strengthen relationships and refine those things. Now, why is this important? Let's come back all the way to that question. Why do we care about, well, you're a lion and I'm an otter, or you're an ENFP and I am an INFJ, or why do we care about those things as a society? Why is it important in our relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship? Understanding personalities can help us navigate relationships in a healthy manner, specifically starting with myself. I can't properly understand anyone else until I understand myself, at least on a base mentality, right? Because when I understand myself, my own personality, I can understand, well, I naturally react this way. These are the things that make me angry. These are the things that make me sad. This is how I tend to act in group situations. This is how I make decisions. This is how I operate. Not as an excuse to say, well, that's just who I am, but just to understand, like, that's why my tendencies are the way that they are. And when I can understand that, then I can think about those things when I react to other people. And by understanding myself and thinking about myself, I actually raise awareness of the fact that there are other people who are different than me. Not everybody's wired the same way. And so when I start to find a little bit of tension or a little bit of conflict or a little bit of something is not quite lining up, one of my first thoughts is, okay, let's go to personality types. I react a certain way, but this person, so I'm a lion otter, okay? My lion otter clashes with a beaver and a golden retriever. And I can take that and I can consider that and I can start to call out and say, this person is not just against me, they're just wired differently than me. And now knowing that, we can look at those differences and start to work on compromise, because I'm coming from a place of who we are rather than just acting out of emotions, right? It's so important to understand the wiring of ourselves and others as we are entering into relationships. And that's thinking about romantic relationships. Isn't that what dating's all about? As we date somebody, as we get to know somebody, or even if it's not dating, it's just friendship, as you're friends with someone for a long period of time, you start to realize that there's differences, that there's personality quirks, that there's things that are different in us. And as we learn to operate in such a way that we can take our differences, work together, be each other's strength where the other person's weak, and just kind of mesh, our personality differences end up being what makes us stronger together. But we've got to be intentional to work towards those things and understand those wirings in ourselves and in other people.